The Nemkhav Façade, the lie of democracy, freedom, and peace, hostilities as of the 23rd of May. A report from the Central People's Government of the State of Sandus, published on Veritum Sandus. It was believed that the week between the 22nd and the 29th of April, the week which saw the demise of the GUM's chair Dullahan and the betrayal of Nemkhavia, marked only the bottom point for Sandom-Nemkhav relations. In multiple articles the state responded to slander and libel against it, and only ended when both states agreed to terms for friendship on the 29th of April. Unfortunately, that agreement was violated this afternoon. In a deliberate and sole action of the federal government of the Nemkhav Federation, this afternoon at 1500 hours 50 minutes, Sandom local time, GMT -5, the Nemkhav federal government declared that all foreign relations with the state of Sandus were to be cut. At that time no reason or any specific detail on the vague term of cutting foreign relations was given. It was not until some time later, after such a grave and important matter was brought up, that reason was given. It was expected of the Nemkhav foreign minister to give the statement to the Central People's Government. However, the foreign minister was seemingly unavailable. The Nemkhav federal government then altered their course of action in an attempt to libel our state, to have the federal government release the statement. The text of the motion in the Nemkhav House of Territories read as thus: This House, noted that the state of Sandus has gained power in the Grand Unified Micronational through questionable means, noting that the state of Sandus is now misusing that power against the Nemkhav Federation, noting the ongoing hostilities by the state of Sandus against the Nemkhav Federation, decides to officially cut all diplomatic ties with the state of Sandus. The first note was in direct violation of the April 29th agreement reached between Sandus and Nemkhavia. Such an agreement noted that actions could have been perceived in such a way, but that it was not the intent. Furthermore, the agreement stipulated that all efforts should be taken in defense of that freedom. Indeed, the authority of the office of the Sogmo, all action was taken in defense of that agreement, including the clear self-defense of the state, as was noted when the Nemkhav Prime Minister slandered this state for the printing of an article in the Voice of Sandus, the official newspaper of the Citizens' Communist Party of Sandus, and not the state of Sandus, as this journal, Veritum Sandus, serves. Such an act of libel against this state by such a high-ranking official, and then by his fellow ministers in power, served as violations of the agreement reached on the 29th of April in the Nemkhav-Sandom Treaty, which Nemkhavia had proven to violate many times before in April. The second note served as an extension of the first note's violation. No evidence has been given by the Nemkhav federal government, and has been specifically denied to be given, when requested by GUM members and delegates. As of yet, no evidence shows an act of abuse of power by the Sandom delegation or the Sandom government in that diplomatic venue against the Nemkhav Federation or its government. Indeed, as of the 19th of May, The Nemkhav president was suspended from the GUM due to unprofessional and unethical behavior concerning a blatant slandering of the GUM acting chair and the Sogmo of the state of Sandus. Such a suspension was ruled by both the present and former supreme judges Tierney and Caesar to be of legal grounds. With the authoring of this motion and of the subsequent statement received later on, it is plausible that both authors were the President, perhaps acting out of anger or distress. The third note is one to which Nemkhavia denied giving any evidence for. Perhaps it was the conversation begun by the Nemkhav Prime Minister, which began with distasteful and harsh words against the CCPS's newspaper, and this government's subsequent defense of the CCPS's right to speech and press, which is enshrined within the founding law of Sandus, that led to this final note. However, at this time, Nemkhavia has isolated itself in its bickering and incompetence. And such begins the issue of the term officially cut all diplomatic ties with the state of Sandus. Such a vague term is left up to interpretation, interpretations which may vary from being considered merely speech by the Nemkhav federal government, or a deliberate change in policy so as to completely bypass the state. However, to do the latter, as this was surely intended, the Nemkhav Federation would have to completely alienate itself from the state of Sandus. Otherwise it is by its membership within organizations, such as the GUM, that Nemkhavia shall never completely cut all diplomatic ties with Sandus. It is by the passing of the Federated Republics of A1 that the Nemkhav Federation has seemingly taken over the role of aggressor against this state, as was noted in the Prime Minister's libel, the President's immature joke, this recent action, and the actions before it. Such a new role of Nemkhavia, which has overthrown the friendship and partnership between peoples, is definitely intended to last the regime of President Whitmarsh, whose social and political policies have nearly always been at the juxtaposition of this state's. When such news of Nemkhavia's blatant aggression reached members and delegates of the GUM, those present, including those with uneven pasts in relations with Sandus, came out in defense of Sandus against this aggression. Madame Cesar, the delegate for Australasia, outright defended this state and questioned the accusation of the Nemkhav federal government that Sandus had engaged in hostilities with Nemkhavia. Joining in Madame Cesar's curiosity for such a grave move by the federal government, Monsieur Mello, the delegate for Kos, asked for specifics from the federal government, a request that was outright denied. Monsieur Puglisi, acting as delegate for Jutlandia and is the president of Tiana, joined in those curious by noticing the mounting ridiculous claims against the state of Sandus. Monsieur Puglisi continued in asking why the motion was created, noticing the fact that the Nemkhav president had been suspended from the GUM. The statement that followed did not clearly respond to this question, as was promised by the Prime Minister. In a statement only 2 sentences long, and drafted over a period of some 6 minutes, the Nemkhav federal government released this statement. Quote, "The Federation has deemed the recent nature of the Sandom state towards the Nemkhav Federation as being unfriendly through the actions of its leader Sogomo Sorgul towards the Federation and itself and its legislators. The Federation thus deems it necessary to annul the previous treaty signed with the State of Sandus, as we, the Government, believe it to be no longer in our interests to hold diplomatic relations with the State of Sandus." Note the parentheses, not common, indirect, or original statements. This has led the Central People's Government to believe that this statement was authored by President Whitmarsh and not its presenter, Prime Minister Nemkhav. This statement, however, gave no actual evidence or reasoning behind Nemkhavia's militant action, despite the government promising that all questions would be answered by the statement. Still, the Nemkhav government refuses to answer questions. Even when the Nemkhav Foreign Minister Hakimoto was asked to comment, Prime Minister Nemkhav quickly interrupted Hakimoto's response by stating that he shall give no response. How ironic, then, that Nemkhavia upholds itself as the democratic and freedom-giving micronation within the community. At the same time, the federal government refuses it of its citizens to comment on such aggressive action and defames foreign media. When such a statement was received, the lounge of the GUM was in disbelief. Monsieur Mello summed up this disbelief in the simplest sentence, quote, "I hope that this is not your full statement." End quote. Unfortunately, it was affirmed immediately after that it was in fact the full statement of the Nemkhav federal government. Monsieur Mello continued with his criticism of this statement by stating that he was, quote, was expecting something more, end quote, perhaps, quote, specifics with actual grounds, and that, quote, it seems pretty personal, end quote. Monsieur Nemkhav indirectly affirmed the belief that he did not author the statement, and rather ignored answering the question directly by merely stating that the question was irrelevant. However, noting the suspicious behavior of the Federation and the suspicious statement, it is clear that Nemkhav did not author the statement, and rather President Whitmarsh is the most likely individual to have authored it. Following this statement's defense of the motion, it is likely that the author for the statement and the motion were the same. Such, perhaps, being perceived as irrelevant or unimportant to some, would affirm Monsieur Mello's suspicion, and that of this government, that the present Whitmarsh acted out of personal endeavor for power, the same unethical behavior that Nemkhavia accused Sandus of without evidence back on the 23rd of April. However, unlike the Nemkhav federal government, this statement and this analysis, approved by Sogomo Sorgul and Madame Cesar of Australasia, clearly identifies the Nemkhav president as acting out of personal hatred against this government, or personal desire for political power. Regardless of the Nemkhav government's failure to respond, the Sandom Central People's Government, following in the advice of the same Liberia politics that were slandered on the 19th of May by the Nemkhav premier, has proven that it shall defend itself. By the clear voice of facts, it has been shown that Nemkhavia's hostile actions against Sandus, which date back to the first violations of April 2012 of the Nemkhav-Sandus Treaty have persisted past the mutual agreement reached on the 29th of April. It is clear, while Sandus has upheld the terms of the agreement that stipulated an end to aggressive talk between both sides, that Nemkhav provocations have continued to the present time, and have made relations between Sandus and Nemkhavia unbearable. Sandus would never have taken the action to suspend or embargo relations with Nemkhavia, noting Sandus's history with Nemkhavia, but that action has been taken by Nemkhavia, with no care for smaller and less powerful nations such as Sandus. It is a testament to the dedication of this government, which is much smaller than the other governments of micronations amongst the elite in the intermicronational community, that Sandus has persisted against all her enemies. It is a testament to Liberia politics, the topic that preceded this very issue, that Sandus has continued against such a large and overbearing nation such as Nemkhavia, being overbearing even towards her own citizens. Whilst Nemkhavia may falsely propagate that it is the bastion of democracy, freedom, and peace, Sandus has been a victim of Nemkhavia for those reasons. Sandus has defended her media and that right of her citizens. Sandus has caused no undue harm or done no undue ill deed against Nemkhavia. And Sandus takes the consideration of all her citizens and partners into account upon enacting law and policy. On all of the maxims of Nemkhavia, Sandus has excelled beyond them, and has proven its perseverance to Liberia and its dedication to herself. So while Nemkhavia claims its defense of democracy and liberalism in the intermicronational world, this facade of Nemkhavia is stripped away by President Whitmarsh's own corruption and the Nemkhav federal government's own incompetence to destroy the same facade they have constructed. Signed, Sogamo Sorbo, Veritum Sandus, the 23rd of May, 2012.